Whether it's for a holiday or just a family dinner, knowing how to make a perfect ham is a must. I'm Catherine from Taste of Home, and today I'm going to walk you through how to make a really easy recipe for a sugar glazed ham. Let's get started. Before we start cooking, let's talk about where we're purchasing the ham. You can buy a really delicious ham at the grocery store, but at Taste of Home, we have found to get the most flavorful ham, head to your local butcher shop. Often those hams are smoked in-house with specialty woods that really bring out the most delicious flavors in your ham. For this recipe, we're going to use a bone-in ham. One benefit is all the flavor from that bone is going to seep into the meat while it bakes, giving you the most flavorful ham possible. And an added benefit is then you have a bone left over and you can make some soup. There are two cuts of ham. The butt, which comes from the shoulder, and that's what we have here. It's a little leaner and there's more meat on the bone. And the shank, which has a higher fat content, a little less meat, but that added fat means added flavor. This recipe calls for a 5 to 7 pound ham, but don't worry if yours is a little bigger, like we have here. There will be plenty of glaze to cover this ham. Let's get cooking. I'm going to start by scoring the meat in a diamond pattern with 1/4 inch cuts all around the outside. This way, when I add the sugar glaze, all of it can seep into the meat as it bakes. I like to make a diamond pattern on it, but don't worry if yours isn't perfect. It's still going to be delicious. I'm going to make these cuts all across the outside of the ham, but don't worry about the cuts on the bottom. Those won't even show. Now that the ham is scored, I'm ready to place it in my pan. I've lined my roasting pan with a rack, and that's going to allow all the juices to collect in the bottom of the pan without softening the outside of the ham. I'm just going to place the ham right on the rack in the roasting pan, and then this gets covered with foil. Covering the ham with foil allows it to stay nice and moist while it bakes. This is going to go into a 325-degree oven for 90 minutes or until it has an internal temperature of 130 degrees. While the ham is in the oven, I'm going to mix together a quick brown sugar glaze. I've got about a cup of brown sugar, and to that, I'm just going to add a little bit of mustard. This is yellow mustard, but Dijon mustard or a nice grainy mustard would be delicious as well. To that, I'm going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, just enough to make a nice thick glaze. It looks like it's not enough liquid, but don't worry, it will be. The brown sugar adds a nice sweetness to the ham, but we don't want it too sweet, so we get a nice balance from the apple cider vinegar and the mustard. And that looks just about right. The ham has been in the oven for 90 minutes and it smells so good. I just want to get a quick temperature before I add that glaze. And it's right where I want it, 130 degrees. If yours is a little bit bigger and it isn't up to temp yet, pop it back in the oven for 10 or 15 minutes. Now it's time to add that brown sugar glaze. I want to add this generously, rubbing it in while I pour to get into all those nooks and crannies because that's going to be a big flavor enhancer. I waited to add the glaze until it was 130 degrees because I wanted to be sure that this glaze does not burn in the bottom of the pan. We want all that sweetness to stay right on the top. I'm going to pop this back in the oven for 15 minutes or so until the glaze has really set up and it starts to get a little crispy on top. The ham is out of the oven, the glaze is a beautiful mahogany color, and it smells so good. Now it's time to carve. That can feel a little overwhelming if you haven't done it before, but I'm going to give you a couple of tips. You can see these clearly marked fat lines in the ham that divide it into sections. I'm going to run my carving knife along the bone and take off one section at a time, following those fat lines, and I'll have a really nice slice every time. I'm starting with this big one first. And I'm running my knife right along the bone, and then right in the front, as deep as I can get, close to the bone, and again following that fat line. And you can see already that it's really loose, and I'll be able to take that whole piece off. I'm almost all the way through. And then I can easily transfer this to my cutting board and start slicing. It really helps to have a nice sharp knife. The fork holds the ham in place while I make my slices. Because we carved along the fat lines, these slices are going to stay together nicely, and I'm not going to have shredded pieces of ham. on my guest plates. If you have more than you're ready to serve for your meal, leave it on the bone until you're ready to pack up your leftovers. That will ensure that the ham stays nice and moist. The ham is ready. The kitchen smells so good from that brown sugar glaze. Don't forget to save your ham bone and all the little bits that fall off when you're carving, because those are going to be perfect in your next batch of soup or ham and scalloped potatoes. I'm going to go eat.